Blind dates are unpredictable, but when a wealthy CEO in a wheelchair was humiliated in front of an entire restaurant, no one expected what happened next. Because sometimes the people who walk out on you aren't nearly as powerful as the ones who walk in. Welcome to Soul Food Channel, where heartwarming tales are consistently unraveled. If this story is gaining your attention, hit like and let us know in the comments what you think will happen next. The rooftop restaurant glimmered with gold chandeliers and soft jazz, the kind of place where the wine list cost more than an average month's rent. Gwen Hayes had been here countless times, but tonight felt different. Tonight, she wasn't here as the CEO of Hayes Biotech. She wasn't here as the woman whose face graced business magazines or whose company stock rose and fell with her every decision. She was here as a woman, just a woman, hoping that a blind date might lead to something more. Her wheelchair slid smoothly across the marble floor as a maitre d' guided her to the table. She had chosen a dark navy dress, elegant yet understated, her auburn hair pinned neatly away from her face. To the world, Gwen radiated composure, but her hands told another story, fingers fidgeting against the fabric of her lap. Across the table sat Daniel Preston, a tall, broad-shouldered man with slick back hair and a smile that looked practiced rather than genuine. He was charming at first, complimenting her intelligence, asking about her company, but his eyes never lingered on hers. They flicked instead to her chair, then to the polished silverware, then back to his glass of wine. By the third course, the mask had slipped. So, Daniel leaned back, swirling his drink. Tell me, Gwen, how does it feel running an empire when you can't even, well, stand on your own 2 feet? The words landed like glass shattering on stone. Conversations at surrounding tables faltered. A few curious heads turned. Gwen's stomach tightened, but she kept her face composed, her voice steady. I run my company with my mind, Mr. Preston, she replied. Not my legs. But Daniel wasn't finished. He smirked, shrugging carelessly as if his cruelty were casual banter. Come on, don't be so serious. I'm just saying, people like you, he gestured vaguely toward her wheelchair, you must struggle keeping up. I mean, don't you ever feel like a burden? The laughter he expected never came. Instead, the silence grew heavier. Gwen's throat burned, her eyes stinging with humiliation she refused to let spill. She wanted to rise, to leave with her dignity intact, but the very fact that she could not stand twisted the knife deeper. And then, before she could respond, someone else did. A voice, low and steady, cut through the tension like steel. Maybe the only burden here is a man who mistakes cruelty for charm. Gwen turned. Standing at the next table, grease-stained from a day's labor, was a stranger. His hair was messy, his shirt rolled at the sleeves, and his calloused hands gripped the back of a chair as if holding himself back from doing more. Daniel scoffed, sneering. And who the hell are you supposed to be? The stranger didn't flinch. He looked at Gwen, not at her wheelchair, not at her discomfort, but directly into her eyes. My name's Ryan. And I think she deserves better than this. The restaurant shifted. Whispers stirred. Daniel laughed awkwardly, waving a dismissive hand, but the spell of his authority was broken. Gwen's heartbeat thundered in her ears. This man, this mechanic, if his oil-streaked shirt was any clue, had seen her humiliation and dared to stand beside her when no one else would. Daniel leaned closer, lowering his voice so only Gwen could hear. You really want to leave with him? Some blue-collar nobody? And for the first time all evening, Gwen smiled, not the forced, polite smile she gave to boardrooms, but a small, genuine one. She turned her chair, rolling past Daniel without a word. Ryan stepped aside to let her through, his jaw tight, eyes burning with quiet defiance. He didn't offer pity. He didn't even offer his hand. He simply walked beside her as she exited, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The night air outside was cool, brushing against Gwen's flushed cheeks. She stopped near the entrance, trying to steady her breath. Ryan stood a respectful distance away, giving her space. You didn't have to do that, Gwen said softly. Yeah, Ryan answered, his voice rough but warm. But I couldn't just sit there and watch. For a long moment, they stood in silence. City lights flickered around them, the hum of traffic rising from the streets below. Gwen studied him, this stranger who had stepped out of nowhere, whose presence had cut through her humiliation like a lifeline. Something stirred inside her, a feeling she hadn't let herself taste in years. Not gratitude. Not even attraction. Something simpler, rarer. The sense of being seen. Ryan shifted, glancing toward the street as if about to leave. Well, he said, take care of yourself. He turned to go, hands in his pockets. Wait. Gwen's voice caught before she could stop it. He turned back, eyes questioning. She hesitated, her pride and vulnerability warring in her chest. Would you, maybe, like to grab coffee sometime, she asked. Ryan's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. Yeah. I'd like that. For the first time that night, Gwen felt the humiliation of the restaurant fade into something else, something unfamiliar but electric. And as Ryan walked her to her car, Gwen realized that what began as the worst night of her life might just have been the beginning of something she never saw coming. Inside his penthouse office, miles away, Gwen Hayes, Gwen's father, watched from a security feed linked to the restaurant. His face was stone, his jaw clenched. He turned to his assistant. Find out who that man is. And make sure he knows his place. Would you risk everything for love? Comment below, we'd love to hear your thoughts. The first time Gwen saw Ryan again, it wasn't in some carefully chosen cafe or tucked away corner of the city. It was at a food truck on 14th Street, the kind of place that never made it into glossy magazines. She had texted him that morning, just one word, coffee. He replied within minutes, sure. But not where you'd expect. Now here she was, her sleek black town car pulling up beside a string of battered trucks, the scent of grilled meat and fried onions drifting through the night air. Gwen rolled her chair out, feeling absurdly overdressed in a cream blouse and tailored skirt. The pavement beneath her wheels was cracked and uneven, a far cry from the marble floors she was used to. And then she spotted him. Ryan leaned against the side of a bright red taco truck, arms crossed, wearing a worn denim jacket and that same quiet confidence she remembered from the restaurant. He grinned when he saw her. Didn't think you'd actually show. I didn't think you'd pick a place with no wine list, Gwen shot back, surprising even herself with the tease. Ryan chuckled, and in that sound, something unknotted in her chest. They ate standing near the curb, Gwen balancing a cardboard tray on her lap while Ryan devoured tacos with practiced ease. Sauce dripped messily onto her shoe, and before she could react, Ryan crouched down, pulling a napkin from his pocket. Sorry, he murmured, gently wiping the stain away. His hand moved with care, not as if he pitied her, but as though the act itself mattered. Gwen froze, her breath catching. No man had touched her like that in years, without calculation, without judgment. Just tenderness. She studied him as he stood, wiping his hands. His life was written in the oil stains under his fingernails, the faint scar along his jaw, the way he seemed grounded in a world she'd never touched. Why'd you step in that night? She asked quietly. Ryan shrugged. Because someone needed to. That's simple. He looked at her then, really looked, like he had in the restaurant. That's simple. For a moment, the street noise faded. Gwen felt seen again, stripped of her titles, her wheelchair, her father's looming shadow. Just Gwen. And it terrified her. The weeks that followed became a blur of stolen hours. Gwen found herself slipping out of board meetings early, excusing herself from social obligations, just to meet Ryan in his world. They shared street food and late-night coffees, sat on park benches under city lights, laughed over stories that would never make it into shareholder reports. Ryan listened, really listened, when she spoke of the loneliness in her father's empire, of the weight of being brilliant but broken in the eyes of men like Daniel Preston. And in return, Ryan told her of his own struggles, working at his uncle's garage, keeping the bills paid, watching friends chase dreams he couldn't afford. Yet in the space between their worlds, something sparked. One evening, Gwen brought her sketchbook, something she hadn't touched since college. She hadn't drawn in years, her father had once called it a waste of time. But as Ryan leaned back against a bench, eyes closed, head tilted toward the stars, her hands moved without thinking. She traced the strong lines of his jaw, the unruly strands of hair, the stubborn curve of his mouth. When he opened his eyes, she slammed the book shut, embarrassed. "What was that?" he asked, smirking. "Nothing," she muttered. Ryan reached, gently prying the sketchbook from her hands. When he saw the drawing, he didn't laugh. He didn't tease. He just looked at her, his voice low. "You should do this more. You're good at it." The simplicity of his words hit her harder than the grandest of boardroom praises. And for the first time in years, Gwen felt whole. But not everyone shared that sentiment. One night, as Gwen rolled out of the garage after visiting Ryan, a black car idled by the curb. The front window lowered, and inside sat Gwen Hayes. Her father's voice was calm, but his eyes were cold steel. "Gwendolyn," he said, a word. She hesitated, but the tone left no room for refusal. She wheeled closer. "I know where you've been spending your evenings," Brian continued. "And with whom?" Gwen's throat tightened. "He's a friend. A mechanic," Brian corrected sharply. "A man who has nothing to offer you, nothing to match your station. Do you understand how dangerous it is for you to be seen with him?" "Dangerous?" Gwen snapped, surprising herself with her own defiance. "He's kind. That's all." Brian leaned forward, his face darkening. "Kindness doesn't protect empires. It doesn't shield legacies. That man will drag you down, and I will not allow it." Before Gwen could respond, the car door opened. A security aide stepped out, tall and broad-shouldered, blocking her view of Ryan's garage. Brian's voice dropped, lethal in its quiet. "End this, Gwen. Tonight. Or I will." The car door shut. The black sedan pulled away, leaving Gwen frozen on the sidewalk, her chest tight with a familiar ache, the ache of being controlled, of having her choices smothered. That night, she met Ryan at their usual bench. The city was alive around them, traffic honking, music spilling from a bar, strangers laughing as they passed, but Gwen felt none of it. She tried to smile, tried to laugh at his jokes, but her father's words clung to her ribs like chains. Ryan noticed. He always noticed. "What's wrong?" he asked finally. She opened her mouth, closed it again. The truth sat heavy on her tongue. "My father will destroy you." Instead, she forced a smile. "Nothing. Just tired." Ryan studied her for a long moment, but said nothing more. Still, Gwen saw the shadow cross his eyes, the flicker of doubt. And in that silence, a storm began to gather, one neither of them could yet see. Back at the Hayes estate, Gwen Hayes stood in his study, staring at a dossier his assistant had placed on his desk. Photographs of Ryan Carter. His garage. His modest apartment. His debts. Brian's lips curled into a thin, merciless smile. "Bring him to me," he said. "It's time he learns where he belongs. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next premiere." The garage smelled of oil and steel, the air heavy with the low hum of machines left cooling in the night. Ryan Carter wiped his hands on a rag, the day's work finally behind him. He was thinking of Gwen, how her laughter sounded when she finally let her guard down, how she'd sketched him with that secretive concentration, as if she were afraid to breathe too loudly and break the moment. He hadn't known a woman like her existed. And he hadn't expected her to choose him. The sound of tires crunching gravel outside snapped him from his thoughts. Headlights cut across the dim garage, followed by the slam of car doors. 3 men stepped inside, suits sharp, movements sharper. Not customers. Ryan dropped the rag. His gut clenched. "You Carter?" one of them asked, voice flat. Ryan nodded slowly. "Depends who's asking." They didn't answer. The first blow came fast, a fist to his stomach that knocked the air from his lungs. He stumbled back, catching himself against a workbench. "Hey, what the hell?" Another punch split his lip. A boot kicked his ribs, sending him crashing to the concrete. The men didn't shout, didn't curse, they moved with the cold efficiency of professionals. This wasn't a fight. It was a message. The tallest leaned down, grabbing Ryan by the collar. "Stay away from Gwendolyn Hayes. She's not for you. You keep seeing her, and this'll be the gentle warning." Ryan spat blood, his voice rough but defiant. "Tell Brian Hayes if he's got something to say, he can say it to me." The man's expression didn't flicker. He slammed Ryan's head back against the floor once, then released him. "End it. Or next time, you won't walk away." The 3 men left as quickly as they came, their car melting into the night. Ryan lay there, chest heaving, pain spreading through every rib. But worse than the bruises was the truth pressing against him: Brian Hayes was right. Gwen wasn't safe with him. He couldn't protect her from this world, not the men in suits, not the empire she was born into. And if he loved her, he'd have to let her go. The next day, Gwen waited at their bench. Rain clouds swelled heavy above the city, the air thick with the scent of an oncoming storm. She spotted Ryan approaching from a distance, his shoulders hunched, his steps slower than usual. Her heart tightened at the faint limp in his stride. "Ryan," she called softly, concern flickering. "What happened to you?" He forced a smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. "Just work. You know how it is." She didn't believe him, but before she could press, he sat down heavily, staring out at the street as if it might swallow him whole. "I can't do this anymore, Gwen." Her chest went cold. "What?" He turned, and for the first time since she'd met him, his gaze wouldn't meet hers. "You deserve better. Someone who can give you the world you're used to. Not this." He gestured at himself, the oil stains, the worn jacket, the bruises he tried to hide. Her throat closed. "Ryan, no. You're not. I've met someone else," he cut in, the words like knives on his tongue. "Someone who can actually be there for me." The lie burned. Every syllable was poison, but he forced it out, knowing it was the only way she'd believe. Gwen's face crumpled. She had been rejected before, but this was different. With Ryan, she had believed. She had let herself feel. And now, the ground beneath her wheels felt like it had vanished. "Don't do this," she whispered, voice breaking. "Don't lie to me." But Ryan only stood, his back turned to her. "Goodbye, Gwen." He walked away without looking back, every step heavier than the last. The storm broke that night. Rain lashed against the city, streets slick with water, thunder rattling windows. Gwen sat alone in her apartment, the sketchbook open before her. Ryan's face stared back from the page, lines blurred by the tear that had fallen when she wasn't watching. Her father's words echoed in her head, "I will not allow it." And Ryan's, "I've met someone else." She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. So she did the only thing she could, she left. Her chair rolled down the slick sidewalks, wheels splashing through puddles. She didn't know where she was going, only that staying still meant drowning in her own grief. The storm swallowed the city, wind tugging at her hair, rain blinding her eyes. Then, in the blur of headlights, a car skidded too close. Tires screeched. Gwen froze, unable to move fast enough. A hand grabbed her chair, yanking it back just as the car roared past. She gasped, heart pounding, and looked up. Ryan. Soaked through, blood still dried along his jaw, he stood above her, chest heaving. "You shouldn't be out here," he said, his voice ragged. Anger flared through her tears. "You don't get to tell me what I should or shouldn't do. You left me, you broke me." Ryan's eyes squeezed shut, rain running down his face like tears. "I lied." Gwen's breath caught. "It wasn't someone else. It was your father." His voice cracked, raw with shame. "He sent men. They beat me, told me to end it or worse would come. I thought if I made you hate me, you'd be safe. But I can't," he broke off, swallowing hard. "I can't stay away from you, Gwen." The storm howled around them, thunder cracking overhead. Gwen's heart wrenched at the truth in his voice, at the pain carved into every line of his body. But before she could speak, a black car slid to a stop across the street. The window lowered, and Brian Hayes' face appeared in the glow of the headlights, his eyes cold and unyielding. Ryan's body tensed, shielding Gwen instinctively. Brian's voice carried through the rain, calm and lethal. "You should have listened, Carter." The car door opened. Men stepped out. Ryan's hand tightened on Gwen's chair as the suited men advanced through the storm. Gwen's breath hitched, torn between fear and fury. "Stay behind me," Ryan said. But Gwen's eyes weren't on Ryan. They were locked on her father, her voice trembling as thunder rolled overhead. "This ends tonight." Subscribe for more cinematic stories of love, betrayal, and power. The rain turned the city into a blur of glass and shadow. Gwen's breath came fast as the suited men closed in, their black coats whipping in the storm. Ryan shifted in front of her, fists clenched despite his battered ribs. "Don't," Gwen whispered. Her voice trembled, but her eyes burned with something Ryan had never seen in her before, unyielding fire. The headlights cut through the downpour, illuminating the figure in the back of the sleek black car. Brian Hayes didn't step out. He didn't need to. His presence filled the street like an iron gate slamming shut. "Father," Gwen called out, her voice slicing through the storm. "Enough." Brian's gaze, sharp as a blade, fixed on her. He motioned, and the men halted. The storm raged, but in that moment, silence swallowed everything. "Get in the car, Gwendolyn," he said evenly. "This foolishness ends now." Gwen's hands tightened on the rims of her wheels. Her heart hammered, but she didn't move. "No." The word rang like thunder. Brian's expression didn't change, but his eyes flickered. "You think you understand love? You think this, mechanic," he spat the word, "can give you the life you were born into? He will destroy you." Ryan stepped forward, defiance etched into his bruised face. "The only one destroying her is you." The men tensed, but Brian raised a hand. His eyes narrowed on Ryan, cold and calculating. "You think you're protecting her? You're nothing. One word from me, and your life, your garage, everything you are, disappears." Gwen's voice cut through the air, trembling but strong. "Then do it. Burn it all down. But you will never take him from me again." Her father blinked. For the first time, his composure cracked, a faint tremor in the armor. "You disappoint me, Gwendolyn," he said softly, his tone more dangerous than a shout. "I've only ever disappointed you," she shot back, her voice breaking. "Because I wasn't the daughter you wanted, perfect, untouchable, strong on two legs. But I am your daughter. And I won't let you keep me caged anymore." Lightning split the sky, illuminating her face, wet with rain, fierce with resolve. Brian studied her for a long, heavy moment. Then, with a flick of his hand, he dismissed his men. The car door slammed shut. The black sedan pulled away, swallowed by the storm. The silence after was deafening. Gwen's shoulders slumped, her strength nearly spent. Ryan dropped to his knees in front of her, rain pooling around them. "You didn't have to do that," he whispered. "Yes, I did," Gwen replied. Her hand reached out, trembling, brushing against his rain-soaked cheek. For once, I chose for me. Their foreheads touched, storm and city fading as the world shrank to just them. Days later, Gwen wheeled into the cavernous marble hall of the Hayes estate. The storm had passed, but the air inside her father's mansion felt colder than any rain. She knew he was waiting, he always was. Brian Hayes sat at his desk, a man carved from stone, the empire of Hayes Biotech reflected in every polished surface around him. "You embarrassed this family," he said flatly. "No, father," Gwen answered. "You did. When you sent men to hurt the only person who's ever truly cared for me." His jaw tightened. "I protected you. You controlled me." Her voice rose, echoing against the marble. "All my life, I've lived under your shadow. I've been brilliant enough for shareholders, strong enough for the board, graceful enough for the cameras. But never enough for you. And I'm done trying." Brian's hands curled into fists on the desk. "If you walk away from this family, from me, there will be nothing left for you." Gwen's heart hammered, but she held his gaze. "You're wrong. For the first time, there's everything left for me." Her words hung heavy. For once, Brian Hayes had no answer. She turned her chair, her wheels gliding across the marble, each rotation echoing her choice. At the doorway, she paused, glancing back only once. "Goodbye, father." And then she left the estate behind. Outside, Ryan was waiting at the gates, leaning against his beat-up truck. He straightened when he saw her, eyes searching. "Well?" he asked softly. Gwen exhaled, a weight lifting from her chest. "It's over." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. His hand extended, not pulling, not pushing, simply offering. Gwen placed her hand in his, the smallest of smiles breaking through her exhaustion. Together, they turned toward the truck. Toward the world outside the gates. Toward a life that would never be easy, never perfect, but theirs. Weeks later, in a tiny corner cafe, Gwen sketched while Ryan tinkered with a broken espresso machine. The air smelled of roasted beans and warm sugar, a far cry from the sterile halls of Hayes Biotech. Customers laughed, music hummed, life moved in rhythm. Gwen glanced up from her sketchbook, watching Ryan curse softly at a stubborn screw. She smiled. "Careful," she teased. "That machine might put you out of business." Ryan grinned, wiping his hands. "Not a chance. Besides, someone's gotta keep you in caffeine." She laughed, freely, wholly, unguarded. And for the first time in her life, Gwen Hayes didn't feel broken, or pitted, or incomplete. She felt whole. Not because Ryan had saved her. But because she had chosen herself, and in doing so, chosen love. The camera of life pulled back, a woman once trapped in marble halls and high towers now sitting in a cafe with a man who had nothing but himself to give, and everything she ever needed. Because empires crumble, legacies fade, but love, the simple, stubborn kind, remains. The end. If this story moved you, give it a like to support the channel.